And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the WPC Coders Podcast. My name is Nathan. I'm alongside the Google's own Kevin and also Jeremy. A new face on the podcast for today is John, who is apparently Mini, a.k.a. Lamini John, a.k.a. leagueio, a.k.a. SureHunter8746. AKA Puff Daddy G47. Today we decided to kind of take a break from the last 2 weeks of doing interviews with our guests, and we're going to get back to our normal routine of doing your discussions, topics, questions, news, most popular porn sites, whatever comes up. But as usual, to kick everything off, what have you guys been doing this week? I know, Kevin, to start with you, you just got back from NVIDIA's conference. How'd that go?
GPU conference, yeah. I'm exhausted now. It was like seminar after seminar for a week straight. It was a lot of fun, though. I mean, neural networks was kind of the topic behind everything. So, got to introduce something I really like.
Was that the top?
What kind of drove? What drove that? Because it seems kind of sudden that they were all of a sudden all about that.
I mean, every year they have a topic, but people are seeing now that you can do it with GPU computing, and it's quick. So, with everyone finding that out, they kind of like, let's make that the focus of our conference.
Awesome. So what were some of the big talks that you enjoyed sitting through?
So I went to our own. Totally forgot what his name was, but the biggest talk I really liked was our own Jeff Dean's talk over what they did with video game playing for neural networks, where they trained a computer. Actually, they just yeah, I hear the echo too in my ear. It basically just said, here's a computer, or here's a game, let the thing teach itself. The whole thing is to score the most points, and it would learn how to play. And it got really good to the point where it predicted what was going to happen.
Interesting. That's awesome. I'm gonna
Just
have
for the
to
viewers, where was the conference, and is it there every year?
Yeah, it's San Jose. It's every year.
the echo. Where is the echo coming from? It just started all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Does somebody have a stream running?
I don't think so.
Mine's not coming from. Yeah, it's not coming from my computer.
Yeah, but if I mute this, nope.
Yeah, let me mute too.
Okay, I don't hear it anymore.
I mean, it's
I
when
don't
I
hear it either.
talk.
Oh. And finally, he's coming on. Phil's here as well.
I totally did not oversleep.
Fashionably late. Fashionably late. Yeah, I still hear it as well. Give me just a minute, guys. I'm gonna go to control room, and I'm just gonna kind of mute people on and off. Let me start with myself.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, that
I
got
don't hear
rid
the
of it.
echo anymore.
Holy crap! Maybe it is me.
Yeah.
Now it's gone.
Well, I see.
Nope, it's there. So do we hear it anymore?
It's back.
I hear you perfectly without any echoes or something.
I think the echo's coming from you.
I hear a
Me?
small echo, yes.
Yeah, I hear it.
Because whenever you muted yourself, it went away.
Okay, now it's Kevin's out.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Maybe it is Kevin.
I don't think
Yeah, I
it's
don't hear
Kevin.
it either. I don't hear it either anymore. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay,
Yeah.
Now I have
Yeah.
my mic back on.
now it's back. So it's somewhere on your end, Kevin. I don't know. I don't know. Let's just grudge through it. Okay, so what were we talking about?
We were talking about the conference.
The conference, yes. What were we talking about during the conference? Were we?
I had asked the question
Oh.
of, where was it at every year, and then we were talking about the game.
Okay, so when it came to actually, from what I could tell, that they were basically just the computer was just running through it over and over, and then it was eventually learning where everything was. Is that pretty much what was happening, or how was all that?
It basically learned how to play. So, like, if I gave you a controller, said do something, right? Just play the game. I won't tell you exactly how to do it. I won't tell you you have to move with this stick or this. It basically just test out every option, and when something good happens, it learns to do whatever.
Was the learning very linear? Like, could it operate in a 3D space, or could it basically just go a single path and learn that way?
No, it can learn in a 3D space.
Okay. To me, that would make it so much more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even actually program it. They don't tell it anything. It's learn basically.
Gotcha. So what was some other big news out of NVIDIA this week, or out of the conference?
The big news is obviously the Titan. They coming out. Then they emphasized like cars using NVIDIA technology still. Which I guess.
Where are you broadcasting this on Twitch?
Should be broadcasting from Watch People Code. I hope.
I see it as offline.
Broadcasting on my own?
Oh, remember you switched it last week. You streamed immediately afterwards.
Yeah, but I did it from my laptop.
Oh.
Wait, stop it. Oh, turns out, yes.
Man, we're just... See, this is the kind of attention to detail here at the WPC that we like to pay to our podcast. Because we care about you, the viewer.
In light of the NVIDIA playing video games, they're also going to be using computers to learn to drive a car.
Yeah. Well, that may be a little down the road.
Yeah, probably just a bit.
Yeah, one of the biggest focuses was training a computer to almost tell you what an image is. So they would have a picture of a bus driving down, and it would say school bus driving down the road. In other images, it'll say there's a bird sitting in a tree. And they actually brought on the human benchmark where he performed at a 5% or 95% accuracy. And until this year, no computer's ever been able to beat him. Then Microsoft beat him at like 4.9, and Google came in like at 4.6.
Is this actually? Did Google incidentally also make the announcement about their FaceNet at this conference as well?
I don't know. I wasn't able to go to every single one.
Okay, so just for context, there was a news article about Google having a new AI system dubbed FaceNet, which is highly accurate at recognizing faces and at identifying faces. It had 100% accuracy at being able to tell if something is a face or not, and it could pair the face with the person, like with a person's name, at about 86%.
Oh yeah, there was something like where Google basically gave a computer or trained a computer with billions of images and said, here. Didn't tell what a face was, didn't tell what a dog was or a cat. It just said learn. And it categorized everything. So it knew what a face was, and it had a default feature of what it looked like. It knew what a cat was. It didn't know it was a cat, but it knew that all the cats belonged in that same little area.
That's insanely like interesting to me. Like a machine that can learn without any previous context or definition.
That's the basis of unsupervised learning for you.
Yeah, well, and even like for instance, when they I think the first, it wasn't the first machine learning, but the first like really big machine news like machine learning article that I ever saw come out was like on was from Netflix, and in their machine learning that they implemented for their ranking system. But even then, they had predefined context for or a basis for which the machine would start from.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that probably for the most part, a lot of machine learning at least starts at some point like that. It doesn't just go, just a bare-based program and go. Like most machine learning doesn't go that way for the most part.
Actually, I mean, it does with unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning, that's the whole point behind it, is you say go and it just jumps and does whatever.
Interesting. Computers are going to take over the world, which is why I'm going to be a programmer, so that way they view me as a friendly.
You think?
That's the first thing that machines do is kill their makers in movies.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So the Titan Z, I want to talk about that for a moment because it's a lot of the times NVIDIA's high-end, even though there's not a lot of people percentage-wise that actually buy the high-end, but it defines what's upcoming for the lower-end GPUs, which ultimately is what manufacturers, AAA studios output for the most part. Yeah. And you said that it is a gamer's GPU.
Yeah, it's no longer a professional GPU like all the other Titans were. The double precision they threw out the window, so now it's just about single precision computing, which is great for gaming. In fact, it blows every other GPU out of the water, hands down. It almost doubles the power of it.
I didn't quite understand part of the main page that they put up for it. Because it was basically broadcasting that it's now on Haswell, but the first Titan that was on Haswell, wasn't it?
No, it's Maxwell now.
Interesting. Oh yeah, I'm getting those reversed. But they didn't necessarily change
or something like that. So.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. It seems like, here's the one thing that I was kind of joking about earlier, is it seems like every year they seem to try to make the Titan bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Like, for the first 3 months that it's being sold, nobody actually has a case that they can put it in.
A standard size, so.
Is it? Well, I know right when the first Titan came out, that was literally the case. Like, there were not many cases that could actually fit the Titan. You had to have a big case.
Yeah.
But so it's not actually that much bigger. It just looks that way.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do like the coloring on it. The coloring on it's pretty sick. Okay, so that's what Kevin did this week. He's exhausted and
yeah, I literally took a 2-hour nap before this.
Nice. It seems like you know what's funny is I did an interview for Watch People Code this last week, and he said the reason that the guy that was doing the article, he said the reason he was so interested is because he thinks that, and actually I think Quincy actually said the same thing on last week's podcast, was that he thinks that we're starting to finally get beyond a convention kind of format for learning and gathering. in that a lot of companies just try to cram a crap ton of information into a single week or weekend, in that he thinks that programmers, for the most part, want to find a place that's more casual, consistent learning, beyond just obviously Googling all over the place. I was really interested to hear that because I've gone to one conference before, and I know that you've probably been to several, and it's exhausting.
It's the first one, actually.
This is your first one?
Yeah.
Interesting. It literally is mentally exhausting. You feel like your brain was handed over to a hobo who like took it around town and slept on it and just literally just messed you up, and then when you get home you just literally you want nothing more than to pass out for a good 12 hours. So Phil's finally here. Everybody look at Phil. Phil's late.
Yeah, and I feel very underdressed. I was literally sleeping like 2 minutes prior to being here.
I was sleeping 30 minutes prior to be here, so.
You know that part of you was hoping you would slip in and nobody would say a thing.
Yeah, it was because I saw your message and it said 8 p.m. right, Central Time. So I remembered the 8 p.m. part, right? So when I looked at my clock, it's like, oh, it's still 7. I went back to sleep. I'm like, oh shit, it's 8 Central Time. You know, it's already 8. So I got up and washed my teeth and came as soon as I can. Good thing it was 7 minutes late only. So I just missed the sound check, I suppose.
You did. So what have you been up to this week, Phil?
To be honest, I've actually been exploring the whole front end of things. I took a break from back end and command line and stuff. Since we have our podcast with Quincy, I decided to check out his freecodecamp.org thing. And I've got to say, it's pretty decent. I've gone through a lot of the exercises, maybe about half. Thing that I noticed, though, is that all of these exercises that he gives are links to other websites. So I haven't really gotten around to what the actual free code camp offers. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, because they are literally links to other websites that you have to follow. But it's been pretty fun so far. The community they have is a GIST chat room, which is pretty cool. Other than that, I've been doing a lot of Python debugging lately. I think you have a debugging tips and stuff for today, so I probably won't get into that right now. We'll maybe leave it for later, unless I have the wrong documentation for today's podcast. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. And
I think that Quincy last week mentioned, he goes, our point wasn't necessarily to come up with our own curriculum right away, because
he made that point.
Yeah, and I think he was on the right path, that you can take a curriculum top to bottom and because I've done a lot, I haven't done, but I've looked through a lot of the curriculums for JavaScript, and it's true. Some lessons are really strong on some sites, but they definitely have holes all over the place. And I think that was the main point of him just saying we pick the strongest lessons in each category to try to get the most well-rounded understanding possible.
Something I never thought to ask him, and it just occurred to me. Anybody that saw last week's podcast might remember him talking about an earlier prior business endeavor where he was trying to pair people with new jobs, well as also at the same time as trying to get them up to speed to be able to do a new job. And one of the things he had was a piece of software which could say, I'm at this point in my knowledge, how can I get to being at another point with more knowledge? And it would generate a list of things you need to learn to get to that point. I just the thought of a question of whether or not he may have used that software to help generate the curriculum for Free Code Camp.
I don't think he did, because he sounded like he was, I don't want to say disappointed, because maybe that's not the correct word to use, but it kind of sounded like he just abandoned that project altogether, and
Well, he abandoned the project, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the code's completely gone. I'm not sure if the code was up and running or if it was just an idea at that point. I mean, that's just one of those things we don't quite know, I suppose. But if it was up and running, it's not like the code just completely disappeared because he decided not to do
Yeah.
that particular business, it could still exist.
Yeah, most developers don't like spend a big chunk of their life on something and then drag and drop it into the trash box because it didn't take off. Yeah, my bet is he still got it around. My bet is he still has it around.
Really quick, Donnie, before we move on to another subject. Since Quincy did talk about how he didn't want to reinvent the wheel and he was like taking pieces of courses from other sites. Like, I wasn't saying it to bash that, oh, free code campus is just like a bunch of like links and like stuff. Like, no, he actually doesn't just say like, hey, go to this website and do this stuff. He actually like explains the reason why he's sending you to this website, and he doesn't have you do like all of the exercises. He has you do like maybe like do 1, 2, 3, and then he sends you to another website to like gather like more information so you're more comfortable with the subject, and then he sends you back to this website. So it's an actual like structured course, but without reinventing the wheel, without like having to rewrite all of these exercises. So I'm not bashing Free Code Camp for linking you to other sites. Like, it's actually a good thing,
Well, I know they definitely have some lessons. I'm not sure if they're in the process of creating them. All I know is that half of the streams that I've watched of his were actually coding lessons. Like, that's what they were doing. So I don't know if that's upcoming. I probably should spend some more time on their site and whatever. But yeah. No, it is a great site, and most of all, that his theory of getting a developer that they've taught a like actual experience is probably worth more than anything else he could offer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, right.
So John, what have you been up to this week, man? I know you've been trying to get a normal streaming schedule going, and I intentionally screw that up for you.
No. I was, like I told you before, it was my first stream ever was, I think 2-3 weeks ago when I started to code leagueio, and I was like, damn, why don't I stream it? And then accidentally I tripped over Watch People Code, and basically that kickstarted that spark I had for, let's code let's showcase my newbiness. And falsely, I created the account leagueio on Twitch, which got some attention thanks to Vice, and I think from there on I was streaming, and for this week I'm trying to get my followers from leagueio to my new channel, LeMiniJohn. LeMiniJohn, by the way, is how people in the industry know me. I'm John. My real name is John. But yeah, I think over the years, LeMiniJohn was prominent, so I started.
You mean to tell me his real name is not leagueio?
What?
That's literally what when everybody was asking who was on this week, that's what I said. I was like, oh, leagueio's on. LeMiniJohn. Wait, so where did that nickname come from?
It's actually from my last name. I'm Greek, and my last name is Miniades. And if you translate that, I think not word by word, but it's Mini Hades, Miniades. It's the small devil. So I took the small, the pleasant part of it, and
sounds like the name for a car.
Oh, the Mini Hades.
Yeah.
But I'm an angel, I swear.
That's exactly what I would say. Probably should put UTC. Okay. So what have you been streaming this week? I know that you're pretty far. You're decently far into your project so far.
Primarily leagueio, yeah. Primarily leagueio. I try to. It's a hard thing to somehow, not somehow. Sometimes I just don't want to stream because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know at all what I'm doing at this moment.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling too well.
And I kind of get like frustrated because like I have 7 hours a day to stream or to probably work. So I'm like, okay, 3 hours I'm into learning and 4 hours I can stream. So basically the whole week went by learning, and in primarily Ruby on Rails I have a lot to do with jobs and Backbone. That has been my week.
Nice. And I know that you're going to be. Are you currently on React, or I know that you were going to move to it?
Yeah, some components I did, but it's just the noobiness in it is cool. But yeah, I'm trying to switch over to React.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned. I think a lot of it, you know, when you were talking about that you stream because you don't want to know what you're doing. I think a lot of people that are on my stream, like by now, like I openly admit that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But here's the thing: is that's everybody. Here's the thing: is good developers run into things that they don't know how to do all the time. If we knew how to do every single thing every single day of our entire lives, we would probably do something else. That's what's one of the great things about programming is the challenge of figuring it out. So I'm like unapologetically a noob when I stream, which is why I stream everything. I'm like, listen, I don't know how to do this, and more than likely, you guys are probably gonna have to send me a bunch of URLs to help. Like you guys are gonna probably have to Google for me, but we're gonna do it anyway.
I think there's like a sweet line in between, like I don't want to see a developer doing everything right because I know I can't do that, and so like in a way it's not helping at all. It's helping me if a developer on stream tries to debug something, because this is expressing new things, new debug tools, or stuff I didn't see at all. But on the other hand, I don't want him to be like 1 hour searching why he can put more than 255 characters in a string.
Exactly. Well, and here's one of the things I learned on my first couple streams, is because I was honestly asking, like I was still blown away why, you know, like 50 people would want to sit there and watch me code. Like I didn't get it, but they were doing it, so whatever. But a lot of them were like, you know, I'm a new programmer, and to me, the hardest thing is going about how to logically break down how to put your program together. Like, they know the syntax, but they have this problem which has 10 pieces in it. How do I figure out which 10 pieces they are, and which order should I create them in?
I get lost a lot.
But I do remember that day, though, that Alex's article came out, and Alex wasn't on for a while, and immediately defaulted to like 300 people, like for the entire time you were on.
Yeah, it was damn. It was totally lucky. It had nothing to do with me or nothing that I was streaming. No, they just grabbed the first link on Watch People Code, which at the time was me, and boom.
I got somebody. There was like that happened to me the next night. Like there's apparently like there's a site out there that all it does is scrape programming news, and so the article went back up, and I was the only person streaming, and I was like,
nice.
Yeah, the article showed up on Slashdot and on Hacker News, I believe.
Yeah,
it
was crazy. We got a new one coming too. I'll have to make sure I'm streaming when that happens, because I actually participated in that. Well, awesome, man. So what's your, like, how percentage-wise, how far are you in your current project? Give me an exact amount.
An exact amount. Okay, cool. I think I'm through 35.2%.
Okay, that's
I think
sounds
I'm
legitimate.
35%.
Decimal.
And then
That's
a week
pretty
later,
exact.
you'll discover you're really at about 12% when you uncover new things you hadn't quite considered yet.
What do you mean my users might want to log out? I've made it a point of never including a cancel account button in anything I've done. No, there's only one way out of my site, and that's the box. Anyway. Okay, and Thomas, you're more of a stream goer. What cool streams have you been watching this week? Thomas.
Me? Thomas.
Jeremy.
There's another Tom. Who? What?
Like,
What?
there's
What's
no
going on?
Thomas in here.
You're
Make up
searching
names
the
for
names.
all of you. G Diddy 97 and Thomas. Or
Well, let's see. This week, I've been watching you. I've also been
That sounds creepy.
watching the guy that's been making the porn site.
Zeno.
Yeah, or Happy Hustle as he's known on Twitch.
he's there for pure educational purposes. Don't
Of course.
He was saying on IRC like 3 days ago that he had this porn star answering questions for his audience, and we're like, how did you get a porn star to like come on your stream to answer questions? I forgot like the actual story behind that, but I thought that was
The actual
cool.
story behind that is, so a little bit of background information on this particular person is that this isn't anywhere near his first job, and it's not even his first porn site, so to speak, but he's been in the industry for quite a while, and at one point he was looking for the next endeavor to do, and he had a friend who was a porn star at that point. Basically, she made her own videos, and people paid her for it, and she had basically came to him and said, why not build a porn site? And he's like, he wasn't so sure about it. He's like, I mean, is there really any money in that? It's like, do people actually pay for porn? The same kind of things you usually hear about paying for porn. And she like showed him the numbers, and they crunched the numbers for however long it was. And then he eventually decided that yeah, it's actually quite profitable. And that particular person was the person that basically got him to put up a website for porn. Essentially, people can come on, create a user account, upload videos, and people can pay money to buy the video, and it goes back to the person.
That's crazy. And I should have known all this because I've been researching that industry for such a long time.
Science.
Researching, guys.
Sure.
God.
Science.
Academic purposes.
From now on, I'm just going to openly watch porn on my living room TV and just tell my girlfriend it's for research. For a money-making site.
I've also been watching Alex. He's been running a couple of streams.
I thought you were going to go with I'm watching Alex on porn.
He tried something a little different today.
Yes, he did. So I watched a little bit of that stream today. Alex was basically opening up his stream for questions from people. He did some code reviews. He answered a whole bunch of questions. How do I get into programming? Should I do programming in college, or should I do computer science in college? Just any kind of general question that people had, he would cover it. And earlier in the week, I also watched Kevin stream when he was starting on his pattern matcher.
The pattern recognition thing.
Okay, so sorry, God, I'm literally getting blown up by clients right now. Okay, I don't know what I've been doing. I haven't really streamed this week. I've been kind of, whatever.
Fix some bugs here and there.
Yeah, I didn't I've had a lot of stuff going on with Watch People Code just in general. That really kind of like what time I would have to stream, it kind of ate up. So let's dive into today's stuff. Where is... Oh, I just went ahead and got rid of my Google documents. Somebody pull off the very first one.
So let's talk about the main topic.
Nah, let's run through.
Okay.
Yeah, let's start at the top. Experiences and obstacles while learning a programming language. And I guess we're just going to go off of our own experience about what we found challenging or difficult. What do you guys think?
I think the hardest thing for me when it came to learning a programming language wasn't necessarily always the syntax. It's how some languages focus on certain kinds of programming styles. So when you get into programming, you often sometimes hear about different ways of doing programming. So there's like, not, is it iterative or iteration or the biggest recent one, I guess you could say, in tech industry has been the push for more what's called functional programming. And sometimes you need to shift how you think about, building your program, the way you pass data around, and do your procedures. It has a big effect on the way you use that particular language, and that kind of shift can be difficult if you've never encountered it before.
I agree. I think for me, it wasn't necessarily the syntax or anything like that. A lot of it was just the fundamental programming methodology behind object-oriented programming. And what I thought was going to be, because your mind definitely changes once you learn your first programming language from being very linear to being object-oriented, and the fact that you class and subclass, and then you have functions and methods, and how all those pieces came together to form what you were making. Like, that was mind-blowing to split a single thought up into that many directions.
It's funny you bring that up, because for the longest time, I've used a lot of object-oriented languages, and when I took formal school classes in OOP, there was this one concept they always talked about, which was data hiding, and using public and private. And back when I was inexperienced, I always thought data hiding meant like some kind of security feature. And it wasn't until I had read a book, Code Complete by Steve McConnell, where he sort of spelled it out and it made more sense to me then, that data hiding wasn't about security. It was about simplifying the way you build programs to make it easier for you as a programmer. It probably doesn't really explain what data hiding is, but
No, I get you. It's when you have a class, right? And the class has variables, right? You don't want to call the class from inside of your main program and then edit those variables in particular to the class in your main program. Like, you want to maybe call a getter or a setter and stuff like that. You don't want to interact with the underlying variables of the class in your main program. You want to have it interact with itself.
Right. If you look back at the way some very old languages that never had, that weren't object-oriented, stuff like C, oftentimes the programs, they became very large. They became incredibly complex. Like, you had these global variables all over the place that you had to switch here and there, and you had to juggle essentially 10 different things when you were trying to do one operation in a program. And if you forgot about one of those things, you didn't set a variable right here to make sure that when you call this function that the state of the program was correct, then the whole thing would just fall apart. And so data hiding basically you create abstract constructions and you hide away all the things you don't want to have to worry about, and you build functions that do that for you. And then when you need to use the class, you just, like you said, you call those functions. It could just be a getter or a setter, but it could be add user, and the code underneath the add user could be calls to databases, sending it over the network, setting up the handshakes between all of that and stuff like that. Those are things you don't have to worry about as a programmer at all.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people could ask, well, why wouldn't I just, an object-oriented programming specifically where you don't have to worry, because of garbage collection and things where you don't have to worry about all that, why wouldn't you just make everything open? But essentially, you're undermining your own program if you are starting to go to a class and call and deal with individual variables. Why'd you even bother making that a class to begin with? Why didn't you just make it one gigantic, huge, file?
A key thing I always keep in mind, especially, is if you have to, at any point when you're trying to use a class, because if you build a big project, whether you're working at a business or it's just one of your personal projects, and they get really big, If at any point you have to stop and go and look at the source code for how a class or a function works, just to see how that function worked or that class worked, then you have sort of gone against the whole idea of data hiding. It should be very clear in documentation for that class how it works. You should not have to sit down and read the source code to make sure you're doing something completely right. The documentation should be enough.
Man, I'm so glad I don't have that problem. I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
You should try to code with Boost libraries.
Honestly, if my programming was writing, it would be one giant run-on sentence. It's awful. So let's go to the next one. Actually, I'm going to skip a little bit. So because it just seems like it'd be in order. So for when you're learning and stuff, what are some of the great tutorials or books, seminars, things that helped you when you were learning?
So the one that really helped me is, let me get a link. This site somewhere. It's cs50.tv. It's a guy named by David Malin. He's a Harvard professor. His course is open source. Ridiculously good teaching, and that's where I started to learn. He was talking about hash tables and trees and tries in a entry level class. You try to post it. Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Do we have? Did you put that on Twitch?
No.
Here, why don't we? I'll put that on YouTube, and you can put it on Twitch, and that way our viewers don't feel like we're having an internal conversation. Channel.
Probably okay.
Video manager.
All one user on Twitch.
I noticed. I actually noticed on both that we don't have many people watching. I think a lot of that, and in fact, I think that might be me. But surprisingly, we actually have quite a few. A good majority of our comments cannot contain links. Listen, you bastard.
No.
I am the moderator here. No, but actually, a lot of our views come after the fact. I think but by the time we finish to the next day, because I think last week we only had about 5 viewers on YouTube. By the next day, at the same time, we already had 180 or something like that.
Oh.
Last week we had a decent amount. We had around 7 to 10 on average on both Twitch and YouTube.
Interesting.
You need to put the link up on Watch People Code Reddit subreddit earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a really good idea. Okay, so this book is amazing, and why?
It's not a book.
It's not a book.
course.
I didn't actually go to the link.
The open source course. But
Okay.
Lectures, actual assignments, projects. It's really cool. They go from basic C, what's an array, to pointers in 30 minutes, to tries in 3 days, to web development and things like that. The final project is to create a algorithm that allows you, and a page that allows you to do high frequency trading.
Wow.
And test it.
Oh, okay. And it's from Harvard, so that makes sense.
And
You don't screw around with Hello World.
I looked at that when I first started coding, and I was able to get there in a month, but it's good.
Here's the question, though. would this course be good for somebody that has no background whatsoever? Because I'm looking at the curriculum and I'm looking at the title of the course. It's Introduction to Computer Science 1, and the curriculum is just like, it is super dense. Like, you just learn loads of stuff in like 12 weeks.
They have a dedicated Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming course at Harvard, so my guess would be no.
Well, no, I mean, when I first started coding, that's the first thing I watched when I had absolutely no idea how to code.
Really?
Yeah, and he codes in front of you. He shows you, here's exactly how you code.
Wow.
Interesting. I think it's so crazy that, God, your learning path is so out there for a lot of us.
Wait, what?
You're you were like, oh, I think everybody's first language should be C++. We're like,
C, you know.
or what was yours? Was it C or C++?
C.
C. God, that's like.
There's a mix between C and assembly.
That's the
taking
equivalent
assembly
of getting
time,
thrown into the deep end of the pool to learn how to swim. Like,
I mean, I liked it.
God, yeah, I bet you when you finally went through that course, you're like, oh my God, they have things that just do that?
I mean, I learned what a try was when I was a freshman because of that course, and you don't learn that for a long time.
Yeah.
Tries
Reading swords.
Tries are cool.
Yeah.
Which, okay. Anybody else? What are some of your books and seminars? I'm a lynda.com guy for pretty much anything new at this point. And it's not necessarily, and I take that back. I didn't learn to program from lynda.com, but if I need to quickly get through the syntax, they have like a single chapter that covers all the syntax differences. And it's like, it's really easy for me to zip through that and just start. I love them for that.
For me, when it comes to programming languages, now that I've gotten like a couple under my belt, I don't really have a website I go to. Usually I'll go to Google and just punch in, the language name and then tutorial, and then, I'll just look for what's an if statement, how do I do a for in the language, and I'll just get the basics down, and then, I'll just jump into like building whatever I need to in the language and hope I know enough. The problem is that particular approach doesn't always cover some of the cool things that languages can do. Like, I know Python, but I still can't wrap my head around for comprehensions.
I mean,
List comprehensions?
Yeah.
It takes a little bit, but I mean, it was practice for me.
Right. I mean, you have to use it, and after you've used it enough, I think that's the key thing with just about any language you're trying to learn, programming language, is just, you have to just get the compiler and just build stuff and see what happens, what errors fall out.
Well, I think a lot of learning comes from circumstance. You don't start by, like, I have to know every function that's available. Or, like, with Java, like, if you tried to really go in and try to find every single import that you could ever do through Java, oh my God, you would never start programming because they come up with so many new ones every year that it brings up them all. They would have a crap ton of new ones for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, especially with something like Java. Like the Java's library is so huge that, like, you're trying to do something, and then you go out and search Stack Overflow on how to do something, and then somebody's like, oh, why aren't you using blah? And it's part of the Java library. Like, there are special, like, queues and array structures that are thread safe built right into Java. And it's like, I never knew about that. And here I am trying to build my own thread safe, vector array.
That's funny. You match them up, and then it's exactly identical to what Java already had. Okay, so anybody else? Actually, Stack Overflow's. I mean, Google. I mean, once you get the basic syntax down, Google's. I bet you Kevin uses Google, and he works for them. Probably erases that history.
No, I Bing.
You Bing.
then you must never find anything.
Oh my
I run
god.
around in circles.
God. You know what? I did a front end. It was Sunday, so I guess that we hadn't done the podcast by this time, but I did an actual front end this last week talk about, and I specifically used Google and being in Yahoo on fundamental
Oh yeah.
user design flaws.
I remember what it was exactly. We were talking about the way a website, sort of basically the focus of something. Like, you have like a business, and you should have like one specific focus and not like a zillion things you're trying to do. And Google was the example of this. They started out as a search engine and they stayed a search engine, even though they added all these things on. And then we went and looked at Bing and Yahoo.
If you went to Yahoo, if you sent somebody to Yahoo who had never heard of Yahoo, never been to Yahoo, and asked them what the point of that page was, they would sit there a long time before they could give you an answer, because it literally is just a clusterfuck of information. In fact, if you were to tell them this is a search site, they'd be like, where? Like the other information on the page far exceeds the search bar itself. Yeah, I specifically pointed out Google because you can find a lot of Google's tools, a lot of their other sites and stuff on their page, but more than anything, it's a search bar and it's a search engine and a search engine only for Google.com. It doesn't try to be anything else but that. Anyway, that's getting off subject. So I guess we'll do this next one. Tips and tricks for debugging searching communities. This is kind of an extension, but what are some tools? I guess we'll put it this way. What are some tools that helped you? Not just like resources that helped you learn, but things that actually helped you do your job along the way.
Whatever language you're using, figure out what the debugger is in that language. I guess should be the best way, and like figure out how to use it.
Yeah, I need to learn how to do debugger still.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So you're basically that guy that goes in and just puts in lots of like print the console just to figure out what the problem is.
I mean, I kind of do like a merge debug where I split it in half and then keep cutting it in half until I figure out where it's at.
No.
A million lines, that's 20 different print statements.
You know what's funny is I'm not 100% sure how to use like for instance my probably favorite language is Objective-C right now. And I've never used their debugger. I pretty much just learned how to read their stacks, and narrow it down pretty quick from there. But I still.
My biggest thing is actually things like Valgrind, which is it comes down to memory checking, or checking to see that you freed all your stuff. And I know in Java and C# that's not a thing, but
you want to give an explanation of what Valgrind is?
So Valgrind is C and C++ and things like that don't have a garbage collector. You need to free your memory, and Valgrind checks. It basically does one run of a garbage collection and checks to see what memory hasn't been freed up yet. It'll list you all of the stuff. There's another version I really like is CacheGrind, and it does the Valgrind usual stuff, and then it checks to see what cache was used during your program and how much for each function. So, like, you can check to see that a histogram is actually going to L1 cache or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So, it's all Linux based. It's all command line tools. So, if you don't mind getting dirty with that, it's great.
I don't know what I think. As far as like I think Stack Overflow has been one of the biggest tools for me, not just as a search, but in a lot of cases, if it's out there, if the information's out there, I don't use it, but it's become a great source for finding things that aren't available, that I cannot find. That, for instance, I like it, no surprise, like Apple messed up one of their APIs with basically some of their camera libraries, to where it would basically release your pointers no matter where you would set a strong pointer variable, it would release it before you would ever use it. And so it just ceased to work, and I looked everywhere, and every single thing I tried was whatever, and finally I just posted up, and it was like, oh yeah, there's a bug for that, you can find the issue here, and here's what you should do to fix it. And I was like, oh my god, without this I would have been here for 16, 20 hours, and I still would have never done it.
Stack Overflow is just incredible. I don't think anybody that's getting the programming these days doesn't realize how, because of how popular Stack Overflow has become, like sort of the de facto, debugging community. Back in the old days, and we're not even talking, like 20, 30 years here. We're talking like, past 5 to 10 years here. The way you got help on particular issues was you would go to the library that you were having a problem with, you would go to their website, you would find out what their mailing list was, you would subscribe to the mailing list, and then send an email to the mailing list and hope to God somebody would reply helping you with the issue. And then, if you were trying to Google for a particular issue, you would hope that Google had scraped the mailing list and would, match it up. And it was so difficult to find answers to problems.
Yeah.
And the more obscure the problem was, the more unlikely it was that you were going to get an answer.
Yeah, I remember before Stack Overflow, when Google Groups, I was subscribed to like 20 different Google Groups, and literally it would just send every single thing that it ever got, because you could not afford to not get information about, bugs and stuff. Like, you would just literally sift through every question that had been asked that day and just hope that none of it affected you.
Yeah.
So which brings me to an interesting topic or discussion, though, is that in many cases a lot of true, like, old school developers kind of consider Stack Overflow like not real. It has created a lot of not real developers, like a bunch of copy pasters. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, it's true. But, I mean, you're going to have fake professionals in every field. Just programming probably won't kill someone, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
unless you go work for a medical company and stuff.
We're starting to get to a point where you can't really say, software ain't going to kill someone, but then you have pacemakers made with software.
Yeah.
You'll have cars that'll be driving you around.
True.
Your planes. I mean, software's all over the place. You just got to hope that the testing framework for those things is robust enough to catch any potential things. But to say that software won't kill anyone,
I said probably.
Probably.
Well, and I think that we've all done the copy and pasting at least once in our life, but I think where the difference comes from is not necessarily in the copy paste itself, but in the desire to personally comprehend what it is, the answer that you found.
Yeah.
Am I copy and pasting the answer and not even reading it? Like, that's a different story than reading it and then going, well, I'm not going to type all that crap out.
So I get so frustrated when I see, like, on subreddits, it's like, hey, I'm that guy who skated through school and relied on everyone else to do stuff so I would pass, and now I am nowhere, and I can't get a job. And it's always so funny to look at that kind of stuff. But people do get through. People use Stack Overflow. They're going to always come up with a way to get by and be a copy and paste programmer. whether it's Stack Overflow or just reading it from a book
or tutorial or
or
anything else.
tutorial.
Well, and I think that this also it brings up another interesting conversation, which is, like things like Kevin doesn't use autocomplete. Somebody was pointing out the other day on your stream. I don't use autocomplete on a vast majority of the platforms that I build for. But it seems to me like at some point, even though you might be able to begin, you might have some basic comprehension, but I think even things like snippets and autocompletion, in a way, is just a form of copy pasting. Like, oh, if I can just remember the first 3 letters of this, then it will complete the rest for me.
So, I mean, the reason I don't use autocomplete isn't because of that. It's mostly just because when I say for, and it just types out the whole thing for me and says fill in this, it kind of throws me off for a couple of seconds until I realize, oh, they did it for me. It kind of stops my train of thought. And I don't really want that. I want to keep going at full speed. Whether someone uses autocorrect to help them, I'm not totally against it either, because you got to know, hey, I have to do this.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely, I've learned from autocomplete sometimes, where I'll just start typing what I think it probably would be, and it will pull it up. But again, I think even that topic itself does all boil, just like with Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
Still boils down to that individual's desire for personal comprehension.
Yeah, I mean, like in Java, there are times where it's like, hey, what is the length function of this data type, this data structure? And
Oh,
I'll just
God.
put in dot, and it'll be like, let's go through the list of functions.
The problem with that is, and a couple of other languages have the same issues, that sometimes it's dot length, and then other times it's a call to dot size.
Yeah,
And
which is stupid.
Somebody should have a meeting about this.
Java is not a very good language.
You know what I think is funny is they are not consistent with themselves.
Yeah.
Like within 2 different libraries, they will call pretty much the same function, like for that specific API, 2 completely different things, even though they complete basically the same task.
I think the problem with that is that, it's just Java's been around for a very, very long time. It's, I don't know, almost 20 years old, maybe older now, and that's what happens with legacy code.
Yeah. I mean, also, if we go back real quick to the copy and paste programmers, there are some algorithms that are just ridiculously hard, and it's kind of like sometimes you got to go find a paper and say, how do I start this? Grab their code or grab their algorithm and just type it out blindly, mathematically. Like, take the math functions and say, what would this be like in code, and just blindly type it out. It's just sometimes you got to have a starting point, and when the code is ridiculously hard, it's not easy.
I mean, that can easily be applied to anything. I mean, you're taking algorithms, which, I mean, I think maybe like, I don't know what percentage of programmers, but I would say it would be quite a few, or maybe more than 50% would have trouble with algorithms in general. But even for beginners, I think it's important to point out to beginners that there's no problem copying and pasting code, because especially if you're trying to build, say, like an Android application, the API for Android or iOS is incredibly large. It's huge. And to believe, we're not saying that you need to go out and read the API and understand everything before you put a whole line of code down. Go grab those tutorials, but try to understand, why are they using this class? What's this class do? Why are they calling this function? There are good tutorials that will explain that. Why are they calling these functions? Why are they doing this? I mean, that's not copy pasting in the way that we're talking about.
Yeah, copy pasting is well, and I think a lot of the copy pasting stuff comes mostly for front end guys. It's like, how do I set an on-click listener for a button in Android? It's like,
You know,
they
I'm
will
gonna be
copy and
honest.
paste that every time because they're not even going to try to look it up and comprehend.
I'm gonna be honest. I am totally a copy and paste guy for front end. Like web development, like my whole site is pretty much me following a tutorial and coding it.
Well, but here's the difference though between like is like your job isn't front end and you have no desire for your permanent specialty in this profession to be front end.
Yeah.
That's different if you're trying to learn to be a native application developer. Like 90% of your job is front end. Learn it.
Yeah.
Or you technically do not know anything about what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So
Also, I guess the paper thing, like 99.9% of the people out there are not going to be reading the papers that I read, so.
Yeah.
Or do the
That
arguments.
will probably go right over their head.
through the first sentence and be like, fuck this. There's a question on here. It says, does the size of the standard library contribute to the need for autocomplete? Did somebody already read that, or?
I mean, I read it. I just didn't say anything. Out loud.
Jared314 asked, does the size of the standard library contribute to the need for autocomplete?
No.
I would say yes.
So, voila.
Bum, ba, ba, bum.
We just asked,
How about the size of the standard library divided by your experience with that library?
it's not
Something
the
like
size that matters, guys. It's not the size.
We'll come up with a mathematical formula to decide whether or not
guess
autocomplete is
the way
viable.
I would defend my point is kind of the same reason why Kevin doesn't use autocomplete, and he says it sort of takes him out of his flow. It takes him out of the zone, I guess you could say. And I think, in my opinion, if I have to stop and then go pull up APIs to figure out what was that function call or what's the name of the class that I need, if I can just simply type in the partial name for that class or function and go have it pop up and be like, oh yeah, it's that, I can stay in the zone and continue programming.
Well, I think that on Kevin's, for me, like if I saw it from Kevin's perspective, if you've never used autocomplete before, like pretend you've never seen an autocomplete. It would be more of a distraction to see all of these autocomplete things that don't have anything to do with what you actually want to type. That would be more of a distraction.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Because I have never used it, so.
Yeah, because literally you would stop even for a brief second every time you did, and you'd be like, oh, I don't want any of that. I'm going to keep typing. So every split second you stop and look at it, you could have finished with it.
So anyway, I'm not really actually going to defend my point because my point is just opinion-based, and that's really what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on it?
Yeah.
It's like, does autocorrect make you a better coder, and is it going to help you in your job? Then I don't see why it's a bad thing, unless you absolutely use it for the entire code.
Yes, sir. Okay, so it's game night tonight, even though I don't know. I bet you everybody shows up. Oh yeah, now we've got people watching. Weird.
Are we echoing again?
It's happening. It's happening again. Which I meant to point this out earlier. There's actually a thing called the dumb machine. Like when you started hearing the echo, I actually heard your speech slow down. There's a guy. I think he was from Harvard. Everybody's done this before, where they heard an echo, but he made an actual machine that would.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That had a microphone on it and would project back a person's voice to them, but with a slight latency, and they would literally like not be able to talk, and they would start slurring everything that they would say. I can't remember what the actual name is. Something like the dumb machine or the retard machine, something like that. It was awesome. They had videos of him like pointing it back at people, of people talking to him, and they would literally start talking like this. It was anyway. That the echo thing made me think of that earlier, and I meant to mention it. Look it up; it's hilarious. But it's game night tonight. How has games influenced programming and software design, either as a culture or directly?
So if you go to the CS50 site, one of the first things they do is have you create a game based on the simplest programming language ever. It's kind of a way to get people introduced to the idea of coding. Everyone knows that you code, or a lot of people want to get into coding just for gaming. So
It's happening again.
The retard machine.
No, I knew at the moment that you started listening to the own echo in your voice, you started it sounded like every single word had a period.
Doesn't help. I was trying to think about the actual sentence as I was actually talking. So.
Oh, okay. It sounded like you were
No, I was trying to think about it in my head what I wanted to say,
Yeah.
and I was talking at the same time, so my brain wasn't caught up to my words yet.
So extending on what Kevin said, that a lot of people get into programming because they want to program games, and it's like a good selling point, to get people attracted into programming. One of the hardest things that I've come up when trying to program is, what do I program? I feel like I want to program something, and I want to use language X, etc. But what do I do with it? What do I program? And come back. Nate. So when you design a game, I'm actually looking at him, and I'm getting so distracted trying to figure out what he's doing. So when you design a game, you kind of have a basic idea of what the game is going to do, because you want to do something that you want to play, right? So I think that's how it influences some part of coding, because it gives you something to work on, something to strive for, whereas designing some other type of software you may not use isn't as appealing as designing a game that you will play later on.
But
that's just extending on.
I agree.
Go ahead.
That's a good point. It actually brings up a bit of advice I would just like to put out there. I mean, the hardest part when it comes to programming is trying to decide what to do. And if you have no interest in games or making a game, it becomes even more difficult, I think, because you want to program, but it's just what project I want to do. And I don't want to get into the whole not invented here syndrome kind of thing, but just a bit of advice I put out to people is, in your daily life, you run into problems all the time, and you may not even realize it, but try to be more aware of the problems you encounter, and then ask yourself, can I use a computer to alleviate this problem to a certain degree? And it may also help to rephrase that particular question as, are there any annoyances in your life that you could use a computer to alleviate that particular annoyance? And then that may help you get on the path to start thinking about, can I write a program to do this? What would be involved in this? And then now you have something that you may actually use in a direction to go in.
Did you catch all that, Nate?
Yep. Every last bit. I totally agree.
No, but you do make some fair points, Jeremy. You do.
I think that, I don't know, most of the programming, this is probably what you already said, but for me, game design, I wouldn't say it was directly responsible for my curiosity in programming, but it played some part. But here's the thing is through that curiosity of how all this gets created, how all the logic that goes behind it is what led me to actually find that programming goes so much deeper, enough to actually make me want to do it,
Yeah, I feel like I'm the only programmer ever who decided to get into programming and it had nothing to do with gaming.
Oh, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I got into programming because like building things, because when you program, you're building something, and like when you finish building it and you run that program and it does what you want, there's like it's just like it feels good to have it all come
Yeah.
together.
See, this is where Kevin and I would always be different, is that Kevin takes a company credit card and buys books with it.
To be fair, I've only ever bought one book.
I don't know why that made me laugh so hard.
Coming from Google, I would have been like, you just bought me so much shit. No idea how bad of a mistake this was. No, I'm just playing.
We do have a question though in the Twitch chat. Jared314, did you all have friends who were also into programming when you learned?
I didn't. Not.
Yes.
No.
No, I
I
didn't
didn't.
either.
No.
I mean, I was going through college, so I mean, I had some of my really good friends do it. So they were going through the CS program at the same time I was.
Yeah. Well, in college, everybody's like, "Oh, what is your major?" And you say, and they're like, "Okay, we immediately have nothing in common based off that." So, yeah, you make friends at college off of programming.
I went to school with 30,000 people, and I knew 10 of them. I saw like 12 every day.
Like
Well,
Mark
even
Zuckerberg.
through college, man. Even like when taking college computer science, even the people inside of computer science are like, "Man, I hate programming." It's like, well, why are you here? Like the people that were taking the class were not into programming, so it's kind of like, holy crap, where do I have to go in life to find other people that want to program as well? Like it's obviously not in college, at least for me.
I mean, they do it for the money, which I do it for the money, but I also do it for the fun. So.
Yeah, I love programming. I think it's incredibly fun, but 99.99% of my friends would disagree and tell me it was the most boring thing they had ever heard of.
I think when people start out with programming, they enjoy it up till they have to start debugging, and then programming becomes less fun for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Am I like the only person that actually like finds debugging helpful? Like
Yes.
to be honest, like I was the guy that would write print statements. Like every time a program didn't work, I would write like a bunch of print statements, and then I was like, man, this is time consuming. You know, like having to stop and write a print statement here, and then oh, I need this other variable. And I was like, I'm gonna look into debuggers, and debuggers is like, okay, well, you run your program, you set a breakpoint, and you can see all of your variables and stuff. And to me, that's like way easier than bashing your head trying to figure out why your logic is wrong. So I don't know why people consider debugging to be bad. I consider it to be great.
Logging is so automatic for me now. I don't even recognize when I'm doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're supposed to log throughout the program You're supposed to log it throughout the program to say, here's what's happening, here's what could potentially break, and here's how it broke automatically. So, I mean, debugging for me is literally trying to go through 80 different trace route functions to see where it came from.
I missed what you said.
So, I mean, what I was saying was debugging itself, you're supposed to have logging. You're supposed to say, here's what happens, how it broke. For debugging, you have the trace route. When you break something, it'll say, here's this line broke, it came from this line, this came from this line, and it goes back 80-something different times at times.
Right, but for tracebacks are kind of for like finding like end of line or inline line error, stuff like that, you know. But when it's a logical error that traceback's not gonna catch, like your syntax isn't wrong, you know, you don't go past your memory boundary, stuff like that, where like your program actually runs, but it doesn't run the way you want it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where debug comes in.
This is why none of us agree with you, because we don't make logical errrs.
Oh, okay. I'm the only imperfect person here.
No, I sure definitely do. But that's why I go to that line in the code, say print what exactly is in here. And
Right.
by the time you debug, I've already remade and just ran it. It takes me 20 seconds to print something.
Yeah. Well, and
No, like I
technically,
said,
if you know all of your log spots, you can easily just read through your log, and it's as good as a breakpoint. Because if your program stops and you didn't get your next log, well, then you know where it quit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, logical errors, you should know exactly where it came from. You should know that,
You
hey,
should have a general idea.
this variable printed 100, not 10, so where does this come from 100? Oh, right here.
This all boils down to you should know.
I mean, you should be able to know
That's what Linus
where
Torvalds would
logical
say.
errors come from, like, in 30 seconds, so.
That's what makes me such a great project manager. Is I'm like, listen, you should know. That like the answer to every question any teammate ever asked me during a project. You should know.
That's why you're not a PM, because PMs don't do that.
Yeah, but
That's true.
there was a talk with Linus Torvalds where he's talking about the Linux kernel and how he refuses some of the patches that people submit, right? And somehow he went into the whole debugging thing, and he's like, if you need to debug, you do not know what you're writing, and you should stop writing code. That debug is for people that actually like have no idea what they're doing, any help. I don't know. I thought that was like a little over the top.
Well,
But-
Linus is a freaking ass. He's a elitist, so that doesn't surprise me in the least bit.
Yeah, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but I was just like, well, this is just a little over the top, you know. Like, I don't know.
We got a good debugger question in Twitch. Do breakpoint debuggers prevent students from learning how to think like a computer? Quote unquote.
Huh.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, he actually did use quotes. I don't know. I don't really know why you have to think like a computer. You got to think logically, unless you get low level.
I think maybe a point he was getting at was just putting down a whole bunch of code and not really thinking about what you're putting down instead of carefully thinking about why am I doing this to sort of help catch those kind of problems before you do it, because you know how it is where you'll write like a for loop for something and you're not thinking about it really carefully. It's like, and you do an off by one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why YouTube ends at 301, not 300. That's a logical error that no one ever caught until it was live. So I mean, you're gonna make those anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna make them all over the place, even if you're trying to think like a computer.
Yeah.
If
By the
we
way,
felt
the
like a
story
computer
behind
would
301 is pretty interesting.
Really.
There's an awesome number file video on that. Why does YouTube freeze their account at 301?
Yeah, no, I saw that too, and that's why I know
Yeah.
it. I don't even know it from YouTube.
I'm just gonna pretend I know exactly what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I know what they're talking about too.
Okay, so let's move over to the main topic tonight, and this actually spawned. The reason I wanted to have it is because I've been reading a lot of books on people who have contributed quote-unquote innovations over the years. Apple, Microsoft,
Of course you started with that.
Nolan Bushnell, a lot of guys who've done some, whether it's debatable or not, have contributed innovation in some way. And so I'm just going to start at the top because this is kind of a deep. You think that this is kind of a base discussion, but it actually is going to go. It's kind of pretty deep when you really think about what innovation is, where it's going. Do we have it anymore? What is it? What is considered? So I'll just start at the top. What is the definition of innovation? How do we know when something has truly been innovated?
I mean, it's really kind of hard to know if something's been innovated before. The conference I went to, we were talking about deep learning and neural networks. It's something that's huge right now, but it was around in the 60s. So, I mean, we're innovating new products based on old software,
Hmm.
but it's still old and it's not very innovative.
Yeah, you know what? And to me, there's been a lot of definitions over the year. Like one of the key examples
Definition.
is is here's the thing is like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. A lot of people think that they're big. You know, like they had a bit of a falling out over the whole Windows Mac, and Steve Jobs thought he stole it and all that. But here's the thing: is they truly had very different ways of thinking, and they constantly challenge each other over the years. Like Bill Gates thought that true innovation came from huge advances in hardware, in technology, and Steve Jobs thought that true innovation came from simplicity. And in fact, he's quoted as saying, you know, innovation doesn't happen by adding to something. It comes by taking things away. Like for instance, you know, like when like when you combine, you know, the internet and in your phone and music, and you combine it all into one device. That's innovation, because what was 10 things is now one thing. And Bill Gates saw it very differently in that no, it's the technology behind it that enables that. That's the innovation, and that's been the true debate over, well, by many different companies for a long time.
I mean, Steve Jobs was innovative in his own way, as in sketchy business practices. But I mean,
I've got several examples for you on this, but that's going to come for different questions. But
I don't really know. I mean, there's no hard thing. There's no hard definition of innovation. It's just what's brand new and what is useful for everyone. I can innovate. I can patent something, and technically it's innovation, but it's kind of like, well, no one actually knows about it. So, I mean, you kind of have to win both.
I agree. And so it has to be both on. Now here's actually the follow-up question, which is actually what I was getting ready to go into, so I should probably ask it first. Is there a difference between user innovation and tech innovation, or are they very intermixed?
I don't know. I guess it could be intermixed. It could be separate. I mean, I know that's not really an answer, but we could have tech-based innovation that no one sees, and then there's user-based innovation that never comes to it. Look at the Kinect. That was supposed to be user innovation, but it never went through.
Yeah. No, I actually completely agree with you. In fact, some could say up to this point, I mean, because it's a very tech-wise, it's insane, but the user side of it you never saw.
Yeah.
Like they promised a bunch of crap, and then nobody got behind it. No games got made. No interesting programs came out for it. So it's just been kind of sitting there.
Yeah. Jared has another question.
Yeah.
Basically asking if innovation today is just building power to implement old ideas. And I mean, in most cases, yeah.
I think there's still some building out the power to implement old ideas. Well, I think there's some true innovations. Well, and this actually is gonna come up in a question here pretty quick, which is the difference between invention and innovation, because a lot of people confuse the two. Invention isn't innovation. Innovation is taking something that's current and making it better, making it more usable, making it, like, there's 1,000 different terms you could use it, but it isn't inventing. Like for instance, we were talking the other day about some of the new processors that are able to function without the use of silicon, and how that could change Silicon Valley forever, and the way that we handle processing going forward. Things like that are brand new and are inventions, but they're not innovations.
So does that mean innovation doesn't really need originality? It's just if you want originality, you'll have to invent.
It's
I wouldn't say that.
I think that it's all in. I think a lot of innovation comes in how you purpose things.
Yeah, I mean,
Because if you were to say, like for instance, Wozniak was the inventor of the, whatever, in the millions of things that he's invented. Like, that's great, but by itself, it's, he's the inventor of those things, but he didn't actually innovate anything because they weren't purposed towards anything. By themselves, they were useless, if that makes sense.
there's a lot of there's a lot of room for good programmers in chemistry. I will not be one of those. Ask my old roommate who's doing cancer research. He tried to get me into chemistry, and it's like I can't do it.
The funny thing is the way you decide. Let's take invention. We say invention's usually building something new that doesn't exist, but that isn't necessarily how. Because if you make an invention, you can actually go and get a patent on that invention. And the interesting thing is, and I'm trying to think. I'm thinking about the Nest right now. If you're not familiar with what the Nest is, it's just a new kind of thermostat that uses AI to sort of adjust your house's temperature, and it's sort of linked into the cloud. It's owned by Google now, but I would almost bet that there is a patent for the Nest. And even though thermostats aren't completely new, it's considered an invention because it's brought in a whole bunch of, artificial intelligence and, design and things like that. So it's both an invention and it's also innovative on an old idea.
So I hate the patent system. Let me start with that. But you're kind of right. It's building something new on something old. And is that what we're considering innovation and inventions, or is it kind of we're taking an old idea and making it slightly better? The Nest is kind of its whole new thing based on an old product. It's not just an upgrade. So
yeah. Well, in a lot of the technology that Nest uses isn't necessarily something that invented, but it's combination. It's kind of like this. If I can't patent a general idea, if I were to go to the patent office and say I want to patent the idea for a computer, like the idea itself, I can't patent, but I can patent the certain combination of technology behind that computer that makes it great.
I can repatent. Sorry. I say I can repatent the computer based on technology plus the 8-track.
There you go.
And then it would be successful. Someone reinvented the wheel on a patent. That's why I hate the patent system. Clearly, let's see.
Yeah, but I mean the general concept behind that, I guess, kind of goes with innovation a little bit, and the fact that like the Nest didn't create something, they didn't invent something. They took technology that made sense together and they brought it together for a single purpose that was unique, that hadn't been done previously. And yeah, it was a improvement upon previous technology, but nobody had ever done it in that way before, in a way that made sense and that that users wanted. I doubt they were probably even the first company to be like, let's automate thermostats.
Oh,
they were the first ones that were like, let's do it in a way that users give a shit.
By the way, take a look at that link. It's pretty funny.
Oh, that's disgusting. I'm just playing. They on the internet, they're like, what is he looking at?
You want to post that in chat so everybody, or in like Twitch chat so people. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, you're on your Twitch Lens programming account.
It usually costs less than that of a standard. That's.
And then scroll down to the picture.
So, for people, you might want to explain what it is to the people that be listening to the podcast and can't see the link.
Oh, that's right.
It is someone in Australia filed a patent for the wheel.
Wait, what?
And got it approved.
He didn't even bother reinventing the wheel. He literally patented the wheel.
Yeah. He that was kind of a little thing for him to set out to show how broken the patent system was.
That's not. I mean, that's in Australia, and it's still just as applicable as it is in the United States.
Yeah, but in the U.S. it would be easier to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it? Didn't? Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Apple get a patent for stairs?
No, but they had round edges.
Okay.
No. Apple got a patent for. Listen, if you're going to be talking anything Microsoft or whatever, I know my history very well on both. Apple patented the floating stairs, which is basically no support, no whatever. They basically patented the way that they molded glass together and made it structurally sound enough that it didn't need any support underneath or above. Either way.
Someone wrote in Twitch chat that someone made a patent for claiming that someone has broken your patent over email.
Wow. I wonder if it's the guy that keeps sending that to me. No, I'm just playing. That's interesting. Yeah, patents are dumb. So let me ask you a question then. Just kind of moving on here a little bit. Are developers still like, as you know, Kevin's kind of, he is the big dog in this question, but are developers responsible for innovation, or is that reserved for big dogs? Like, as just an individual developing a website, developing a product, developing whatever it is that you're working on, do you think that we should still strive for innovations personally, or is that something that's simply reserved for large corporations?
If you have a legit thing, then absolutely patent it. Like I was doing it when I was in school. I was patenting something over camera switching techniques for sporting algorithms, and never finished it. But yeah, it shouldn't be reserved for big dogs. Everyone should.
Not just patents though, but just innovation in general.
Yeah. Should we strive as just individuals for innovation, or should we just accept the fact that large teams do that kind of thing? Like, should we be striving to innovate things? Like, should that
actually, here's a better way to phrase it. Are the only people that can do big things, like, you know, take an idea and make it big, are the only people that can do that the big companies like Google, Microsoft, and Apple, or can?
I mean, sorry. No, I mean, Google literally buys out companies all the time after they innovated, after they made something. We want to take something, and this is unofficial, I don't actually know if that's their thought process, but we want to take stuff that has potential and give it resources to make it big. So, I mean, Google wants to see people innovate all the time, and we'll pay big bucks just to help you.
Yeah, I just want to also just jump in and say that I agree that you don't need to be a big company to do innovative things, and innovation is still very much in the hands of single developers or a small group of developers. I mean, this is what makes Silicon Valley as a location such a great thing, because you can have a group of 4 people, you can be really, really small, and you can get people to give you money to go and make your idea a big thing.
Yeah. To make this clear, not just any idea, a good idea. It's not like if you fly out to Silicon Valley, they just start throwing money at you because you're with 3 other people. Yeah.
Twitch chat. This week's podcast is sponsored by Bud Light.
I need to send them like an invoice. Like, not even ask them if they want to sponsor me, just send them an invoice. Listen, I
Bud
drink
Light,
your
the drink
beer
of developers.
on a camera, and you now owe me money. Just completely pretend I don't know how sponsorships work. No, I drank your beer on a camera, and people saw me do it. You owe me money.
This Pepsi is owned by Google.
What's sad is that they'd probably be like, geez, this guy's so ballsy, we should probably give it to him. Okay,
My old
so
professor worked for him.
so what is the big difference, or are they the same thing? Like between, we've kind of talked about this, between innovation and invention. Like, are they the exact same thing, or do innovations happen on things where absolutely nothing new was created?
When I hear the word invention, even though you can patent an invention and you can patent software, even though it's kind of getting more difficult these days, I still think of inventions as physical things. You know, you're going to build something physically, whereas, you know, software tends to be innovative or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like this, and I'll actually talk about this more later, but like things like the iPod. The iPod didn't have anything in like an invention in it. It was comprised of nothing but pre-made technology. But
the iPod had something new in it.
It had
that scroll wheel.
That scroll wheel. Yeah. Okay. I knew you were somebody. I knew somebody was going to say that. But on a fundamental level, they didn't invent new technology from scratch in every part of it. You know, that it wasn't an entire invention. Like, it was basically just technology packaged in a different way that made sense for the purpose that it needed to serve.
So this is going to go on the next question, but a lot of people, I always joke around and say this, but innovation is just someone building what IBM came up with 30 years ago.
It's kind of accurate sometimes.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
All the big things you see is IBM 30 years ago.
Just IBM never figured out a way to make it sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it that I'm trying to think of what Wozniak invented that they turned down. He invented it on their time. I think it was when he invented the input that allowed what you were typing on the keyboard to be displayed immediately. I think was that his invention?
I don't know.
I can't remember. He invented that interface. I'm pretty sure that was his initial invention that kind of sparked the whole thing, which he did on IBM's time. So technically, it still is IBM's.
Funny thing is, no invention that can never hold because nothing can be displayed immediately. There's always a slight delay.
Yeah.
We can't see the delay, but.
Yeah, but I mean, well, in considering you had to read like a printout and shit.
Yeah.
Back when this happened, it was pretty inventive, or
yeah.
I don't know. But so who would you? Okay, this is actually a good question. Who would you say is the biggest contributors to innovation, and what are some examples?
So I am absolutely gonna hate to say this. Both parts. The biggest contributors, patent-wise, are patent trolls. But no, IBM is really the biggest contributor. They come out with like 8,000 patents a year, and a lot of them are actually useful. As much as I hate the company, they are useful.
Oh man, don't forget Bell Labs. Jared314 just pointed that out. Bell Labs was huge back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that actually, I'm going to save them for later. No, I agree. I think that, you know what's funny is that if you really think about it, the biggest contributors, the most well-known contributors, is very obvious. But the biggest contributors, like, neither Microsoft nor Apple are actually big contributors to innovation. They were good packagers of innovation.
The biggest contributor is really just IBM.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that, actually.
I don't know. When I think of innovation, I'm not really thinking about a lot of the more modern technology, the computers we're using. I'm thinking about the more recent startups like you have Uber or Twitter and all of them. I'm thinking like the biggest contributors, at least these days, to innovation that support innovation are going to be angel investors and venture capitalists that are willing to put the money behind it. Because when you have an idea, it could be a really great innovation. I can't even say it now. But at some point, you're going to need money to get things done, and that's always the most difficult part, is being able to get somebody to get behind your new innovation. So, and I think also just want to add that also for a lot of the more hardware's started to become sort of a new thing to innovate on, and I think a good big contributor to that has been China, because they've opened up a lot of their cheap factories to fabricate a lot of these new things that used to be really expensive to do. So that's helped innovation in at least the hardware sector.
Yeah. And I think we're really focusing on tech here. Some of the biggest inventions and innovation style things don't exactly come from tech. Look at the medical field. Most of this recent stuff there came from NASA.
Yep.
So ideas can come from anywhere.
You know what I think is funny is that a lot of the innovations in tech that companies created and ran with originally started as an idea by either the military or NASA, in realizing that they didn't have the manpower and the resources to kind of do it on their own, allowed other companies who took it and made it a reality. Not saying that NASA is like the whatever, but a lot of their things that they were like, we need something that can do this, and found a company willing to take it on, is what led to a lot of crap that we have.
Well, NASA doesn't actually produce anything. They contract everything out, so that's their own thing. So
yeah. Okay, so what innovations would you guys say that we've seen in the last like it seems like everything that we've talked about so far is really old. Like, what are some innovations that we've seen recently?
Hey, hold up real quick. Jared brings up a good point, and some of the innovative stuff comes from research, universities.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I meant, but I said much stupider.
Much stupider?
Yes.
Sorry.
Everyone dislikes the government, but they fund a lot of the blue sky research. Yeah, he's exactly right.
Recent years, Google Glass, I've always liked the idea. Having a heads-up display in front of your face all the time.
The funny thing is that the format of the Google Glass is so horrendous that no one wants to use it. But give it a decade or two, somebody's going to innovate a design that's way better than what the Google Glass was, and it'll take off.
Here's what I want to give Google Glass really quick. I think without Google Glass, we wouldn't be looking at wearables, period.
Yeah. Think about this. If we stuck an Apple on it, it would sell billions.
Yeah, but the fact is unless Google Glass came up, watches wouldn't, or smartwatches wouldn't have started coming out. If smartwatches didn't start coming out, Apple wouldn't have a watch right now.
Yeah.
If Google and anything that happens, if they didn't try to do something first, even if it failed, Apple would never look at it.
Well, when Google does something, everyone else looks at it, whether it's stupid or the best idea in the world. Everyone runs with it because it's Google. No one wants to fall behind Google. So
I agree.
You're right.
Yeah, I keep saying thank God for Google for putting up this money at their their X Labs to do these projects that may never turn a profit at all. They've shaken up the industry so much.
I always make fun of Google a little bit, not because to make fun of Google, but I always call them Apple's marketing research.
Their beta tester.
Yeah, that's literally kind of what they are. They're like, well, Google didn't fail miserably, so we probably got a good shot.
Can you look at Twitch chat and answer his question?
How to make a social media website, please.
You know,
Oh man.
I don't know. I find that so funny.
I'm not gonna make fun of him too bad, but you probably don't have a chance of all of us stopping what we're doing right now to create a website.
No. Everybody, stop everything. We are creating a social media website right now.
What would you like it to be about? Please give us a title and a name.
WPC Connect.
Import Reddit API.
Wait, they're on GitHub, right? Let's just copy paste.
Oh yeah.
We should have one of these podcasts. We should talk about Web 2.0 though.
I seriously think we need a collaborative project on a podcast one day.
That would be cool, actually. I'm gonna just copy and paste our Reddit subreddit in there, and hopefully he'll go in there and figure it out.
Noobs for ninjas.
So I don't remember what we were talking about. God.
Google.
The downside of drinking alcohol.
Google
We were talking about
something.
Google and being a beta testers for Apple.
In a way, it's kind of true.
Well, we're all IBM is beta testing for everyone, so
IBM were the alpha testers.
yeah.
You know
They
what?
invented alpha testing.
And, like, here's the thing: is IBM consistently over the span of their entire history has tried something brand new that nobody else has done, and because it didn't initially take off and become an immediate success, abandon the idea and say it will never work, only to watch other companies do it and make millions. Like, that's been their entire history forever. Like, they're like, well, it didn't pick up the first month. Get rid of the whole project. It's over. And then, like, 2 months later, somebody makes billions off of it. And they're like, God damn it, why didn't somebody stop me from canceling it?
Ignoring the personal computer, I think the biggest thing that IBM was never able to make money off of was probably cloud computing.
Yeah. Oh, my God. And they made such, yeah, they lit from... There was no even thought of cloud computing before IBM.
Yeah.
It's poor implementation. I think I wouldn't say it's poor implementation, it's that they have kind of a problem from recovering from their own mistakes, and they just cancel it, and then another company goes, no, that would have worked if you would have done this, and then, like, finish basically finish their thought for them.
That's what happens with corporate bureaucracy.
That's true. Okay, so what are some examples of programming innovations? This is more of an opinion-based subject, but what are some programming innovations that have occurred?
Brain fuck.
Yes.
You call that an innovation?
That's not an innovation, sir. That revolutionized our industry.
It is totally innovative.
I'm pretty sure.
What's the opposite of innovation? It's like a regression of innovation.
I personally plan on brain fucking everything. Okay? It is the future. I think that things like Node.js are really innovative. Taking a language that everyone forever said, like, almost mocked in a way for being only client-side, and making it kind of the first full-stack language in a way.
You got to look deeper than that, though, with Node.js. The whole point, the big thing that made Node.js successful wasn't necessarily that they had the idea. It was they had the ability to do it. When Google, don't even think it's really Google that did it, but the whole V8, which is a JavaScript engine. I mean, they pulled the JavaScript engine out of the browser and sort of made it a single standalone thing. That, I mean, anybody could plug into a browser, but the guys at Node.js looked at it and was like, well, we can just have it run code and do things that you can't do with a sandbox browser now.
I agree.
So I guess the innovative thing was pulling the JavaScript engine that was almost always closely attached to the browser out and into a separate, thing that you can now use.
I agree. I'm gonna give one that I think there's a lot of people that are gonna disagree with me on, but I think what will spawn from it, people will view as true. Here, I think that Swift is innovative. I hate Swift. I hate its syntax. But I think people are nobody's gonna say that I'm right in viewing it as innovation. But when somebody else does it, because it won't be Apple, they will call it innovation.
What's innovative about Swift?
The fact that I can write something that should be compiled and ran natively on a platform, I can use in a sandbox, then compile, and then upload and use it natively. That, like, nobody else is doing that right now. Like there's now lots of companies actually that are coming out with languages that are doing the same thing, like React. React is actually doing the exact same thing, but Swift came out with it first. And I'm sure that there's companies out there that probably tried to do it, failed to do it, but to actually run with it and make it part of your native language, they were the first one to have the balls enough to step up and actually integrate it. That's really, and here's the thing: is Kevin and I we're probably a couple questions away, 3 or 4 questions away from having it out over Apple altogether. Not have it out, but some good discussion about it. But ultimately, I think there's value, not just in like with Swift in programming, but packaging things in a way that makes sense that no other company's done before. Not that it didn't exist before, but packaging it in a way where it worked. There's lots of people that have tried so many different technology before Apple, like Swift, for instance, but they never put it in a way that actually it made sense and it worked, and you could sandbox it and type it and see it in real time, just like JavaScript, then compile it, export it, and put it on a native app, on a phone as an actual application. Like things like that, individually they've all been tried before, but it never worked. And isn't that the point? That it works.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess. Go ahead.
I didn't really have a whole lot to input on that, but I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with it. I mean,
I guess the examples that I would say for programming innovation and stuff, at least in terms of the languages, I had mentioned it earlier. I'm not sure what the context was, but I mean, there are a lot of language. Just every language since back in the 70s and the 80s has been an iteration on prior languages and has been an innovation into certain aspects. I mean, when C++ came on the scene, it helped innovate the way we think about building programs. I think before that there wasn't a whole lot of object-oriented languages, but I think object-oriented probably existed even before C++ was ever put down into code. But every language tends to be some advance to a certain degree in some field of programming. Maybe they go back in one area, but it does something better than what the prior versions did.
I have a bit of trivia for all of you. Who invented object-oriented programming? The company is going to shock the shit out of you.
Oh, I know the answer to this.
I don't actually know.
Xerox.
Hmm.
Xerox came up with the idea for object-oriented programming. What the fuck? They also invented GUI interfaces.
Huh.
And in fact, when Steve Jobs first started accusing Bill Gates, and there's like a famous line when he goes, "You stole our idea," and he goes, they both had seen this Xerox presentation. He goes, "No," he's like, "It's like this. It's like I broke into my neighbor's house to steal his TV, only to find that you had stolen it first." It's like a famous line that he fired back at Bill, because it's true. They both stole both those things off of Xerox.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
That's about all I had to say on that particular issue. I think, I mean, just, languages iterate. They get progressively better in many aspects, and they simplify the programmer's job. Whereas, if you look back at working in C, there's just so much you have to keep track of usually. But then, you jump ahead to, higher level languages in general. They've made it easier to work with incredibly large code bases, and you can get more done in short amounts of time. I mean, that's incredibly innovative, even if you don't really think about it that way.
Yeah, I agree. What about other ones? What other ones can you think of, program-wise? What's been innovated recently?
I will say that there are a lot of languages coming out now that make it easier to work in parallel. I was talking to Kevin in IRC about, Scala, for instance, now has built-in, data splitting. So if you've got a list of items like an array, and you need to perform an operation on it, Scala will now automatically, split the list up into chunks and feed it into a method that you want to call, and it'll split it across all your CPU cores. I mean, that's something you used to have to, you'd have to set up the threads, you'd have to manage splitting the array on your own, and then, bringing, pulling the result back together. And so they've simplified having to, manage threading, which can be incredibly difficult.
I agree.
Yeah, threading is fun.
Threading is fun.
For those of us who like it and like to create pain for ourselves. But
That's exactly what it is. It's creating pain for yourself. Because if you're not building a program right to handle threading, you're going to end up with a gigantic headache as you're trying to build. That's one of those cases where you need debugging, because at some point you're probably going to put your program into deadlock where all of your threads are waiting for one object to become available to them.
yeah, but that's when you do stupid things like giving yourself the opportunity to put yourself in deadlock. But that also makes it inefficient.
If John just left the screen because it says coming in doorbell at 4 a.m. What the fuck? Probably is getting arrested, so we appreciate him being on the show.
Probably won't see him again.
What do you think about JS getting threads? I don't know. About time.
About time.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
So most people who do C++ will tell you that C++ finally got threading, and it's not true. We've had threading since beginning of C, beginning of assembly actually. It's just we finally have a decent library for it.
Yeah, I mean, C and C++ have always had it. You just had to make calls to the operating system's, proper APIs to be able to create the thread.
Yeah.
Where's some examples of programming at? Okay. And this brings me to our next subject. It doesn't bring me to it. I'm skipping to it because Anyway, do companies hold back on innovation? Do you think? Do you think there's a lot out there that companies are just kind of sit on it until they think they can make more money on it?
Yep.
Yes.
Like, I think it's one thing for a company to be like, it's not ready. It's another thing to be like, let's just, like, kind of like with CPUs, like, oh my God, come on, Intel's got like processors that can do a shitload more than we're seeing. They're just waiting until the sales kind of draw down, and they're like, oh look, we got a new one.
Yeah.
No, you've had that one for 10 years. It's just been sitting in somebody's office.
But yeah, they hold back all the time because sometimes the market's just not right for it. I mean, best example I gave, before we started recording was, the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, in an interview with Kevin Ross, he had mentioned that, he had the idea for Twitter, way back before it came out. Like, I don't remember the exact time frame, but it could have been, the 1990s. And, he thought about it, he's like, this probably won't do too well in today's market, the way the internet was back then. But then, so he put it on the back burner, and then here in the 2000s, he pulled it out, looked at the idea again, and then put it up on the web to see how it would do, and it did better. And I agree with, the way he thought about it, that, Twitter probably wouldn't have done well back in the 1990s.
Yeah, that was a good call.
I agree.
Quincy should have done the same thought process.
Well, and it's like my favorite Tony Robbins quote. is he says the right thing done at the right time is still the wrong thing.
What?
And it makes complete sense if you think about it. It's pretty deep, but the right thing at the right time is still the wrong thing. And man, there's been a lot of innovations that became really popular in later years that were terrible at first, but there wasn't a call for it when it was done right at the right time. Like it took off. IBM, for instance, is a perfect example of a company that continuously has done that.
Yeah.
This is the one that I think I'll have some people that don't agree with me on, but I'll ask you guys, and I want you guys to answer first. What are innovations that went unnoticed or unappreciated?
All of mine.
Anything I've ever done. I hate you, Dad.
There's always a little bit behind those guys that feel unappreciated. I'm just playing.
Ouch.
What are somewhat? I'm just joking. What are?
Ooh.
So what do you guys think? What are some innovations that went unnoticed? Kevin, I know you've got a stack of them. You've got some. You've been kind of through the whole history of computing, it seems. So what do you think? You wanted sugar at 4 a.m.?
Just 4 fucking a.m. and my neighbor just came over and asked me if I have sugar.
Oh my God.
The perks of living in Germany, like they don't give a fuck. It's 4 a.m. I need sugar. Let's.
Better than the alternative of what we thought.
Oh my God.
But just look at a lot of what Google's done. I mean, I don't think some people may not be aware of the number of projects that Google starts up, especially back when they first were becoming big. They had a huge number of just projects that they had. And I mean, anybody that worked at the company could start up a project, I think it was, and, they put it on the page, and some of them got traction, some of them didn't, and they're now in the process of, trimming a lot of the fat, but, I mean,
there's Wave. I loved Wave.
Yeah.
There's something like, they used to have Google Health, which you could sync a lot of, health-based data into it and, centralize it. They shut that down 3-4 years ago. They used to have Google Reader, I think it was, something like that, where you could, sync up all your RSS feeds. But, RSS has kind of started to die down. I don't think a lot of people use it anymore, so they shut that down.
Yeah, every podcast and every single
Right, we use RSS.
I know, exactly.
iTunes entire iPod is based off of RSS.
No, it's not based off of
a lot
it.
of
It is RSS.
It is RSS.
I mean, a lot of the 20% projects, yeah, they do go unnoticed, and that's mostly just boredom from someone else.
I love how Google splits apart good projects that didn't necessarily work, like pull the good parts out of it and make it into, like for instance, a lot of Google Wave. I love Google Wave, but a lot of it has since been extracted and put into different things. A lot of Google Plus incorporated what Google Wave had done.
Yeah, Google Plus.
Yeah.
Google
I
Plus.
think Google Plus is a good platform. It's just they came too late to the party.
It's not even they came too late. Facebook has been losing millions of users all the time, and Google Plus, all they had to do was sit there and wait for Facebook to mess up. And because everyone knows Google's going to have ads, but our ads are reasonable. What Facebook does, it's kind of like they lost a bunch of trust, and users wanted to go somewhere, and then G Plus did the stupid thing of trying to force people to come to their product.
Yeah.
And everyone at YouTube hated that thing.
Oh, they got from everyone they knew, they probably got nothing but complaints about, the way the comment system works.
Yeah, like there's internal comics about it, just making fun of the G Plus guys.
Wow.
I wonder how hard it is to work for your dream job and know that you're on the project that everyone hates. Like, yeah, I finally get. Oh shit, you're gonna put me on what team?
Well, I mean, it wasn't really a project everyone hated. It's someone higher up made a stupid mistake, contrary to just research and what the customer feedback wanted. And Google usually doesn't do that, but occasionally someone stupid messes up. And that was one of those times. And G Plus kind of failed on it.
You know what I do love about Google Plus? I've got to give them this. I love their communities as a programmer.
Yeah, me too.
It's like Stack Overflow, but I can post a message to only people that speak that language. I don't have to wait until I'm in line with 1 million other questions and hope that mine gets seen. Like it goes to immediately to 30,000 guys that all know the language I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I wish they would dump Google Groups and put the Google Plus communities in its place.
Yeah.
I should point out, it's as a kind of irony, the division of Google that sort of handled all of those small projects, the things that could possibly become big, was called Google Labs. And I'm looking at the Wikipedia for it right now, and they closed that part of Google.
They did.
Yeah.
One of the best things out of Google Labs, I think, was their search engine analytics. It's not necessarily like analytics for your homepage, but how it broke down how people search the web, what they search for. If you would type in, I'm looking for a new computer, it would break down 87 things that people got better results searching for, and help you target the. It was brilliant, whoever came up with that.
So there's a potential innovation I would really love to see made, and I have no idea if it's true. I just saw a rumor online from it, but Google modifying their search to for it, instead of links, it'll be truth.
Oh, are you talking about the new ranking system?
Yeah, and again, I don't know how true that is. I can't even confirm it. I don't know what team they confirm it with, but
I could see it happening, especially if they pair it with PageRank, because I don't think they're quite satisfied with the way PageRank works now, especially with the way the internet is now.
Yeah.
And for context, for anybody that's confused as what we're talking about, there was news articles out there about the last week or two that Google was going to try coming up with a new search algorithm that ranked pages based on the amount of facts they put into their page versus the number of links that were present within the page. Because currently, the way PageRank works is highly favorable if a lot of people link to your website, which doesn't necessarily mean that your page is very good. And if you think about it, the way the internet is now with Facebook, you know, people can, you know, put up a whole bunch of links and there's, you know, clickbait stuff all over the place. So it's become a lot more difficult to rank what are good pages and what are bad pages. So I would not be surprised if this is actually true. And Google has a lot of infrastructure in place technologically to make it happen. They've got what's called the knowledge graph, for instance, where they've been building up just large databases of facts so that they can now, you know, cross-reference the two to help generate a score for how good a page is factually.
Interesting. It seemed for a while that Google was getting bought. I mean, not just in ads, but like kind of bought in a way on how they prioritized. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they were accused of that just a couple years ago.
I have no clue.
Anyway, yeah, Kevin, I expect you to know everything at this point, okay?
Even if I did, I can't tell you. So.
Exactly. All those NDAs.
So better I just say I have no clue, which I actually do have no clue. But
I have a question for people who have been watching our thing. Has it been my face that's been main center the entire time? Or is it actually jumping? Is it jumping back and forth for you guys?
It's jumping back and forth for us.
Okay, so
yeah,
there's
but no.
Yep.
So you can control that. So it just,
I know I can control. There's a thing called what is it called? It's called Control Room, and I turned it off, and I wanted to make sure it was actually off.
We're echoing again. Oh yeah, he muted it.
Yep. Okay, so I have an innovation. It's not an invention, but an innovation that I think. Here, I read that. I reread.
Get better headphones.
There was a thing called. There was a thing called. The one that I've been thinking of was the iPod, and not necessarily for just the iPod itself, but it also moved a lot of companies in a way that kind of changed the way that the user experience worked, and it also actually re-revolutionized the music industry. Okay, so here's what happened. The iPod, and we can go into all sorts of story about the only thing that they actually invented was the little track wheel, whatever. At the time that they came out with the iPod, the only competitor was the Rio, which held 16 songs, had like 4 buttons, took forever to make playlists because it was all supposed to be done on the thing itself. Just that was a little. I need to stop paying attention to that. Anyway, so what happened was during the exact same time, this was when Napster and Kazaa and all the other companies were getting ripped off. Album sales went down by like 15%, which is a huge amount to happen in like 1 year. 4 different record companies tried to make their own software, which failed miserably. They had terrible user interfaces, and nobody had a device that would actually help them create playlists and do all the things that they wanted to do with the other digital devices coming out. And so by Steve Jobs taking the iPod, getting every single company to work together under the iTunes App Store, that was another problem, is that if I bought a song here from this record company, it basically moved to the same system that I bought this other song from this other company. So basically, by unifying all these record companies together under one roof and being able to put them on one device where the user could have a end-to-end experience from buying to the song to downloading the song to putting it on the device to listening to it to putting it on a playlist. It made every other company fall in line. And without having done that, I think we would look at it. We'd be looking at a very different form of music today. And even and what's funny is like for the one time ever, for the first time ever, Gates was actually quoted as saying, "I can't believe that Steve Jobs is the only person who pulled this off." I know you guys are a bunch of assholes. Fucking all of you. They're over here fucking with me, putting all sorts of shit in chat, and I'm starting. No, it's like Kevin's echo thing we were making fun of earlier, except I'm like.
The thing I can't remember is how long was there an iTunes before there was an iPod, or was there an iPod before there was an iTunes?
No, iTunes was created for the iPod, but it was simply a way to make playlists at the time. You could burn CDs to it, you could download a million Kazaa songs, you could or Napster songs.
Right, then the big question becomes, was it incredibly popular at that particular point? Because I think if it was, then you could easily say that the only reason why they were able to get the recording industry to come into line with them was because they could point and say, here, look, we've got a lot of people using the iPod right now, and 80% of these people are probably using illegally downloaded songs. We have this idea about creating an iTunes store where they can go and buy music, and as long as you price it reasonably, we think people will actually buy it. And then that's how they got people to come in the line. They had a market base already with the iPod, and they were able to leverage that.
Well, no. Well, here's actually what happened: is PC was crushing Apple, and Apple actually used that to their own advantage. All the recording industries and all the recording companies and the artists hated it. Steve Jobs wanted to sell at $1 per song. Artists didn't want their album torn apart and all their whatever. And the record companies they were all doing it by month to month, whatever. If you canceled your service with them, then you would lose all your songs. Or you could buy the whole album and download. Those were the only two options. And Steve Jobs basically said, well, we want everybody to do this. Here's what's going to happen, where everybody's going to buy $1 per song. And he goes, and they were all scared of that because $1 for every song downloaded individually, that didn't make sense to them, and they were losing individual songs all over the place. So it put a bad taste in their mouth. He goes, well, listen, we only have 12% market share. Consider us like a test market. And that's how it was born. Was what you're doing right now isn't working, and people are ripping off millions of dollars of songs every single day. So what do you have to lose? Like, we're so small that if it doesn't work, then consider us like a really small test market, and it didn't work, and cancel the contract. Like, and that actually
it was smart.
Yeah, but
Netflix did something really similar as well.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what happened. But here's the big thing was that the big thing that, and why I call it's not necessarily with the iPod and in the store. Like, I think all of that would have came anyway. But for the first time, companies go, Steve Jobs came across and forced the first complete end-to-end user experience, and it worked. Like, from the computer getting from the user getting on the computer to downloading the song to putting it on their device to creating the playlist, from every single step, top to bottom, it's all done in one central location, and that was incredibly difficult for, and even admittedly so for Bill Gates to comprehend at the time. He made the platform. He was a software guy. Like, he never really, and actually you're starting to see Microsoft actually currently going that route still, is from front to end we can offer every single thing a
There's-
user does.
Okay, it's worth pointing out, though, the reason why Microsoft probably never went that route in the first place was because they had, in their past, they'd already been slapped down by an antitrust lawsuit for trying to basically control an entire market range of things from one point to another.
Yeah, that's true, but they didn't do it. And what I mean by that is they didn't see it. They didn't see themselves as a multi-platform product or device maker. You had Windows computers, and then you had iPods out there. You had people who made music download software. They never saw themselves as a company that was able to tie all those things together. They saw them all as different pieces.
I mean, if Bill Gates said it, then I'm willing to, take it as that. But I mean, it kind of, that there at one point before Apple did it, there had to have been at least a couple of employees, some managers, and maybe even an exec person in there that said, "Hey, why don't we do this?" Which is exactly what Apple went and did, and Microsoft was just like, "Nah, it's not a good idea."
Well, and that's basically what I give. That's basically what I'm giving Steve Jobs the innovation credit for. Is he's the first guy who says the user experience has to be end to end. And now you see, like Microsoft's with Windows 10, I think it will be really the first time that they've offered the first full well-rounded experience where Xbox One connects to your computer, which connects to your phone, which connects to their tablets. And Apple was really the first company that did that top to bottom. And it's because he forced them to.
I still think a lot of the way Microsoft has developed over the years has been a result of those antitrust lawsuits that they had back in, what was it, the 90s? I think it was about the 90s, or maybe it was the early 2000s, that they had where it broke up a lot of the company. They had to, they couldn't have everything in one place. And that, Apple never had that problem because nobody was freaking using any of Apple's products. They didn't have market share.
They had a 75% market share at the time, though, when it came to music. 75%, which is insane for any company to own that much. But here's the thing: it's kind of like this. When Microsoft came out with a phone, who did they give it to first? Nokia.
Was it Nokia? I was going to say HTC.
Yeah, Nokia was the first. Actually, you might be. They might have been the first company to release it, but Microsoft came to Nokia first, which they eventually bought. They liked Nokia a lot. So they gave it to another company to control that user experience. Their operating system, they licensed out to all sorts of companies who could fuck with it and do whatever they want to, put any kind of shitty hardware they wanted to on it. They let other companies control that user experience. When it came to consoles, they gave it to Dreamcast to provide the first Windows user experience, which failed miserably and never even came out. They always relied on other people to deliver the end-to-end Microsoft user experience. They never controlled it themselves. And what you got was shoddy work because anybody could make anything they want to with it. And so for the first time, you start seeing Microsoft, like now, for once they are actually starting to come up with their first end-to-end hardware to software user experience along every single device along the way. They're making their own phones now. They're making their own console.
Computers.
Yeah, I've got kids trying to say night. Tablets. You've got the Microsoft Surface.
That's not a tablet. That's a computer.
Okay, so a computer.
It's a tablet / laptop. I mean, it can do both.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm not trying to get. Basically, I'm not trying to give Steve Jobs a whole bunch of credit for a whole bunch of stuff. Everybody has debates about that, but he is the first person that demonstrated that the first hardware to software across along every step of the way can be done, and you can guarantee a great user experience by doing it and literally control a market for it. Basically, Bill Gates called Steve Jobs and was like, Steve Gates, I did this a couple weeks ago. He actually asked, so is this coming to Windows? Like, he was like, come on, man, don't fuck me now. You know that. And it did. Not at first, because, well, Steve Jobs was an asshole. Let's put it that way. He was a complete dick. Anybody that ever read anything about him, or anybody that had ever met him and heard it, he's an asshole to his core. Was. He was a complete dick. He thought he was inciting creation by telling his team every day that what they were creating was shit. Like, he'd walk into the office and he wouldn't even look at something. He'd be interviewing somebody and somebody would throw down a paper and he'd be like, "It's shit, get it out of here." That's how the Mac was created. But yeah, I think that's mainly why a lot of people don't want to give him credit for shit. It's because he was such a dickhead. But okay, so we are running really late. We've been on here for a while. And Lee hasn't said, John, like, literally, hello. You took that pretty face comment that I said earlier, and you took it to heart, because that's all you've done is said that.
No, dude, I'm listening. I'm listening.
You are sitting there and listening and giving out sugar.
Giving out sugar.
Come on, buddy. Give us some sugar. Give us some sugar. So we are having a game night, which is happening immediately following this.
Oh, is it?
This week's Rambling sponsored by Bud Light. That's awesome. Yes, there will be. They're also sponsoring game night and my hangover tomorrow morning.
Oh man, you got caught. It took a second to catch that. Yeah.
NVIDIA sponsoring
my hangover tomorrow.
What'd you say,
That's
Kevin?
pretty funny.
Said NVIDIA is sponsoring my sleeping in tomorrow.
NVIDIA, not only do they provide great graphics, but also great sleep.
I didn't say great sleep.
Well, if you're that exhausted, you probably will sleep pretty good. Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's nothing like being exhausted and then sleeping for 10 hours after. It is awesome sleep.
Yeah, I have a futon, so probably not that good of sleep.
Maximize your ramblings, maximize the drinkability.
Ramblings?
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Immediately following this, I'm going to pee, and then we're going to figure out what our platform of choice is going to be for comms, and then that information is going to go right into the Watch People Code subreddit so that you guys can participate with us. And I think there's people that want to play Team Fortress 2 that have Linux, things like that. If that's the case, we'll probably start there. If not, then we're probably going to jump to something else. Because I told them yesterday that you guys better throw your hat in the ring that you're going to participate if we're going to play Team Fortress 2, because I'm not going to put it up there and then play it and you don't show up. So they've got to do it. So give it about, let's say 10 minutes, and you guys should have your answers on there to come and join us. One has 4 eyes but can't see. A blind
Jared asked
person
about
with
the group
glasses?
project idea.
Mississippi.
What, ab-
Damn it, man.
what about the group project idea? That's what Jared asked about in Twitch chat.
Group project.
So at the beginning, the idea had been thrown around about getting a whole bunch of people on like a Google Hangout and sort of working together. I don't. The idea wasn't quite fleshed out, so I'm not sure exactly what you had in mind.
Was it me?
Yeah, it was you.
So, it was you.
I don't
It was in response to the social media teach me that was on Twitch chat. That you're like, yeah, we should probably get around to doing some kind of group project.
Yeah. Oh no, I was joking. That we would all stop and immediately create a
No, well, it
social
was a
media site
commitment. People on Twitch are asking for it now, so you're committed. You have
Yeah,
to come up with a
remember-
group
Well,
project.
actually, I have been thinking that we probably should create like a podcast page at some point with like a cool back end that does stuff, cool stuff. It's like I sound like the most vague, like project manager ever. Listen, guys, we need to make this project that's really cool. It does cool stuff. So if you guys can do that, thanks. See you in a week. Like with no details whatsoever. What is cool stuff? Wait. What do you find cool? Bastard.
It's recorded.
Yeah, like you said before, you said it on the internet, so it's true.
Yep, that's true.
We could go back and play the 2.5-hour recording.
Actually, what's funny is I got Alex on the very first, like on episode 3 because I said, listen, I seriously told him that you were going to stream without your shirt on the rest of the week if you didn't come. Because he was honestly saying no, and he goes, fine, I'll do it. He was saying no until I said that. I was like, and I said it's on the internet, so it has to be true. So literally, you have to stream without your shirt on. He was like, fine, I'll
And
do
they
it.
get banned for it.
Yeah, that could have gone poorly, but I'm willing to take that chance for the good of the viewers. All right, guys, so we're done for today. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, feel free to tell your dog. I don't know where people put that stuff. The new site's coming up pretty soon. You guys will be able to put questions, comments.
If you have any questions, comments, you can put them on the Reddit for this particular podcast, the one that was sticky on the Watch People code.
Yes, and don't forget we are coming at you nearly every single Saturday and nearly on time.
Sometimes on
at
Friday.
nearly 8 p.m.
Don't tell your cat; he won't listen.
It's true. Anyway, so we will catch you guys next time, and stay tuned for that post that I was talking about. I need like some
Later,
kind
guys.
of official podcast
Bye.
other than awkward. See ya.